Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Nick Watts, and welcome to another episode of College Football Under Review, a show made by a football fan for football fans everywhere. And today we have our Week 3 recap episode. And Week 3 went about the same way as the Georgia-Tennessee game, because when that game started and it was fast tempo, touchdowns being scored left and right, I said, whoa, you better sit down, strap in, because this is going to be a wild ride and a wild weekend. And a wild weekend it was, full of instant classics all around the table. All around the table. Great weekend of college football. And it just adds to another reason why this is the best sport in America. And this was one of the best weeks of college football this season. And I know it's crazy to say, it's only week 3. Every week has gotten better. Every college football game seems to be more electric, more exciting, just full of excitement, full of a roller coaster of emotions. And we're going to be going through that today. And some of our headlines from this weekend and this roller coaster of emotions include Georgia Tech. They're no longer an underdog. We can't treat them as an underdog anymore. Georgia somehow walks out of Knoxville unscathed and kind of looking around thinking, how did we just get out of there with a win? Because Kirby Smart didn't know how. He thought that they completely were going to lose, but they found a way to win. And then Texas A&M gets their biggest away win since 2015. That's a decade ago. And it seems that the Irish playoff hopes are almost non-existent, and they're going to need a lot of luck. But with all of that out of the way, let's get into our Week 3 recap and take college football under review. So, the first game, absolute cinema of a game. Georgia going in and scraping out a win against Tennessee at Neyland Stadium. And it's kind of like the Jurassic Park quote, life finds a way. Well, in this instance, Kirby finds a way. This was a much needed win to not only start off your SEC schedule, but to give the Georgia fans a lot of confidence after their kind of mediocre performance the last 2 weeks. And this game was nothing short of mediocre for the Georgia team. Kirby, in his post-game press conference, even admitted that they should have lost the game because of how well Tennessee played. Tennessee came out firing on all cylinders, and this was really the first time in a while, I would say, we've seen Tennessee come out here with a just deep threat as well as a strong run game. But the fast tempo offense that Tennessee played with was able to score effectively and really break down this Georgia secondary, and this is why they were so effective in this game and why they should have won. It's honestly so good, and they destroyed the Georgia secondary so bad that they had scored touchdowns on pass interference calls and just declined the pass interference calls because they got the touchdown. That's how badly this Georgia secondary got burnt. But the Tennessee defense was also rough when it came to penalty yards that really kept Georgia drives alive in the second half of the game and allowed the Dogs to just always stay in it. Now, in the end, I think both of these teams played phenomenal games, and I honestly had very few notes on this game because I felt like it was such a great game. It was back and forth, offenses executing on everything, some defensive miscues here and there, but nothing glaring. And Tennessee, I felt like, was winning the 50-50 balls on offense and defense the entire game. Tennessee had the home field advantage, and they had the run and deep threat presence that they have not had against Georgia for a while. But in the end, that was not enough to win. Everyone on that Georgia team was able to fight and do their job and get the win out of Knoxville. Now, we cannot go over the glaring fact that Tennessee did lose on a field goal. And it was very interesting. I think it was a big miscue by them. And I think all Tennessee fans are sitting here saying, well, yeah, of course it was a big freaking miscue. The whole thing that transpired really befuddled me, to be quite honest. There were 7 seconds left, and they were going to seemingly run the ball. The ball was on the Georgia 20, so Tennessee easily had a good field goal set up. They were on the left hash mark, and they were going to run a play and then false start on Tennessee. Back them up to the Georgia 25. It's going to be around a 30 to 40-yard field goal. Still nothing too difficult. And Josh Heupel doesn't call a timeout, which he had 3 timeouts, I believe. And I don't know why you don't sit there, use one of those, and think it through with your offensive coordinator. This is the game on the line here. There's 7 seconds remaining. What I would have done personally, and when I say this, yes, I know I am no head coach. I'm not on the field, on the sidelines, but they may have wanted me for this game on the sideline, because for me personally, take that first timeout. Talk with your offensive coordinator and your special teams group, and even get your kicker in there and say, where do you want this ball placed? Do you want it center, right, left? We've got 7 seconds, so I think you have easily 5 seconds to get the ball placed and immediately call timeout. Yes, you're going to sacrifice about 2 or 3 more yards, but that's still very makeable in today's kicking atmosphere, because we are seeing kickers hit like 56-yarders, and the Georgia Tech one was a 51-yarder. So I think it was pretty doable. So 2 things. You can say, okay, we're still taking the timeout. We're allowing our kicker. Okay, you like where it is? Then go ahead, kick it, win the game. Or get a timeout, and honestly, I don't know why a lot of people don't do this. Obviously, it's going to be a controversy if it happens, but you go out there and right before they snap the ball, call timeout, give your kicker, honestly, a practice kick. If it goes in, obviously, you're sitting back going, well, dang, I may have screwed that for us. But if it doesn't go in, which in this case, it did not, you're sitting back and saying, okay, what do you want? Because it was not 4th down. They had a opportunity to place the ball where he wanted. They didn't. And Josh Heupel just looked like a buffoon for that play call, and the Tennessee fans could not believe it. They could not witness that Georgia was going to come in and sneak out with a win, because even though it went into overtime, you knew that Georgia had the momentum, and Georgia came out and just dominated in overtime and won the game. And like I said last week, the dogs are going to eat, the dogs ate, and Kirby, just like life, finds a way to win. Now, our next game, USF at Miami. I really didn't have much on this game either. It was kind of like how we predicted it. The Hurricanes were going to blow South Florida right out of the water, and right out of the water they did. Miami won 49-12. Carson Beck, he just continues to find his receivers, and it seems like he doesn't even have to be that precise. He just has to throw it up in their general vicinity, and they're going to come down with the ball. But the Miami run game also just dominated the USF defense, just sucking all the air out of the game. And the Miami defense stepped up in a big way and took the USF running attack seemingly out of the game. And overall, in my opinion, the overall domination by Miami, it adds a very nice win, but nothing crazy just to help their resume. It's still helping the resume, because I think USF won't really finish in the top 25. It still helps their resume, and it's a nice win for Mario Cristobal. And there was no part of me that thought he could drop the ball in this game. But good win for the Canes. The Carson Beck redemption arc keeps chugging along. Now, what's not chugging along is the Notre Dame faithful and their faith probably as a playoff team this season. Texas A&M comes into South Bend and wins 41-40. and gives this Notre Dame a winless season so far. Now, would you believe that Notre Dame actually utilized Jeremiah Love in this game, and he showed out and had a great performance? But what's crazy is that it just didn't matter in the end. What ultimately cost this Notre Dame team the win was the former lacrosse player Tyler Buckner, and that name may sound familiar for Alabama fans. He was the second string last year when we played USF in that really bad game. He came in, played terribly. Former lacrosse player, and it's almost like you could, the headlines were read aloud when he mishandled the PAT ball, and they had to ultimately try and do a crazy 2-point conversion play to get any points on the board. But I could almost read the headline: lacrosse player doesn't know how to handle a football. Notre Dame loses, because that's how it felt. Now, we need to give Texas A&M its flowers. They destroyed this Notre Dame secondary, and this is about the second game that the Notre Dame secondary has been destroyed. And I think it's just time that we acknowledge that this Irish defense just isn't as good as we thought it was going to be. Outside of that, Marcel Reed was able to show us again why he won the starting quarterback position last season, as he just completely carved up Notre Dame with his arm and run ability that shook up this Notre Dame defense. And going back to Notre Dame, it just seems that this isn't Notre Dame's year. But, and this is a very big but, and a very big optimistic and positive look on this Notre Dame team that I'm going to give. I think they should be optimistic with the talent that they have with CJ Carr, and the offensive line looked pretty well. They were able to be dominant, and if they can reload the defense for next season, I think they will be right back in the national championship conversation. This just is not the year. The only game that this Notre Dame team really needs to circle on their schedule right now is the rivalry game against USC. And the way that they have played, this looks like a very losable game, because USC seems to be growing confident week by week. But I know that their playoff chances are completely out of their control at this point, unless, and this is the big unless, because it's Notre Dame, it's the brand, and it's what comes with it, because already we've seen the media disappoint the college fan base. And if Notre Dame can dominate the rest of their schedule and the media continues to bolster the Notre Dame hype and comeback story, which they probably will, we may see Notre Dame in the conversation again for getting in the playoffs. But after this, they've played two Power 4 teams that were ranked. They lost to them. And they have no other, as of now, they don't have any other ranked opponents on their schedule, which needs to change if they want a chance in the playoffs. Got to get the graphic back up. Second week in a row, man. Second week in a row. But for Texas A&M, this was their first away win against a ranked opponent since 2014 for the Aggies, which golf claps all around. Congratulations. Mike Elko is finally putting together a winning program, and maybe they can break the 8-4 curse streak, whatever you want to call it, this season, and they just may be in contention for the SEC title game. Now, Clemson at Georgia Tech. Seems like the once aforementioned Dabo Swinney and the glory years at Clemson may just be waning away, as Georgia Tech beat Clemson, and it felt like they dominated them, in my opinion, 24-21, winning off of one of the coolest ways to win a game, a fire drill field goal. It wasn't a true fire drill because they did have the timeout, so they were able to plan it, but still, it was exciting to see, and it was a great spectacle to behold. But like I said, Georgia Tech felt like they had control the entire game and played with dominant fashion along the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And how about Haynes King? I mean, what an absolute dog. And being able to fight for every yard he could for this Georgia Tech team. You could just see the fight, the passion, the love for his teammates. Every snap he gets, every time he keeps the ball, runs it, and puts his head down. It's beautiful. I love it. Keep doing your thing, Haynes King. Now, Clemson, one thing that really frustrated me in this game was that Brent Key loves his screen passes, but Clemson was all over them. They were all over the screen passes. They're outside the hash marks defense, and their edge rushers did a great job in this game. And it just kind of, I don't know why Brent Key kept doing it, but I was screaming at the TV, like, why are you throwing these screen passes? It's not doing anything. But Clemson had 2 turnovers. One of them, not so bad, but another one was very bad as it was in the red zone, and it really just felt like, oh, Clemson's not going to get it done. And another factor that came into this game that also felt like Clemson just wasn't going to get it done was that they just continued to struggle on third downs and ultimately even get to third and short yardage downs. They really hurt themselves on first down plays, on not even getting 4 or 5 yards out of the play. And multiple times in this game, multiple times in this season, they have been faced with third and long or third and medium and barely give them opportunities to convert third downs on third and short, which is what Georgia Tech did and how they were kind of able to beat them. But one thing that showed a lot of balls for Brent Key, and he put him out on the field, was that Georgia Tech was willing to try and get every advantage that they possibly could and take risks in this game. What do I mean by that? They were willing to throw the deep pass, which worked sometimes, and they went for it on fourth downs. They were 0 for 2 on fourth downs, but they were able to get 2 turnovers, so I kind of see it as it's a balancing act. And they were willing to go the extra mile and put it all on the table to win this game because they have not won it the last 9 times they've played Clemson. Now, going back to Clemson, it seems that our thoughts for Cade Klubnik being our second favorite Heisman pick is getting worse and worse by the day, by the game, by the throw even, as he just did not look good. He did not look consistent. He did not look confident. He doesn't look like a quarterback that's going to go out there and will the game in his favor. Because in this game, Clemson's only reliable weapon was their running back, and he just was the only consistency that this offense had and the only one they were accurately able to utilize in their offensive scheme. Now, I think with Clemson, they are not out of the ACC championship. They just have 1 loss in their conference, but their chances of a postseason have diminished greatly after this game. And like I said, we really could be in the waning years of the Dabo era within the Clemson program. Or is it just that the playing field around the country has been leveled? We've seen more upsets the last 2, honestly, this season and last season than the last decade, it seems. It seems like upsets are more common with this transfer portal and with this NIL. But, I mean, I'm just going to talk about it again. The Georgia Tech fire drill field goal was just executed perfectly, and they said that they had practiced it all week before the game. So I just got to give flowers to Georgia Tech on how flawless, how awesome. Just it was an epic moment where all their hard work and dedication culminated in this one moment. Haynes King fighting for that extra yardage, being helped up by his teammates, running off the field, and then the kicker coming in, doing his job, and just executing a special teams play. And what do we say? Special teams make special plays, And that's what they did. This game was an instant classic, and it is going to be cemented in Georgia Tech history. Stingers up, baby. Georgia Tech football is back on the map. Now, another program that's back on the map and is not pretenders, but could be contenders. And that was Vanderbilt going to South Carolina and just beating the brakes off them. Vanderbilt beats number 11 ranked South Carolina 31-7. And I'll say this about Vanderbilt. This program does not just win games, and what they've shown is that they win games as a team. They play as a team. They are willing to, almost like Georgia Tech, die for each other and show up whenever someone falls short. Whether it's the offense not getting a third down, they have to punt it. The defense shows up when they need to. Maybe the defense doesn't show up. The offense is going to go out there and pick up the defensive slack. This team is able to play both sides of the ball with such tenacity and willingness to put it out there and fight for each other that you can't not want to root for Vanderbilt now. They almost seemed like this little scrappy little kid on the playground last season after getting, the win against Alabama. Diego Pavia kind of looking like this little punk, like, yeah, we're coming in here, we're going to win. You're like, haha, that's cute. No, he's standing on business now. He is standing on business. Now, Vanderbilt knew that this South Carolina offense had the ability to be explosive. So what did the Commodores do to combat this? Well, they limited the amount of time that South Carolina was able to possess the ball and capitalize on South Carolina turnovers. Vanderbilt had about 35 minutes and South Carolina 25 minutes with the ball. And so, that's 10 more minutes than they gave South Carolina. That was huge. South Carolina had about 4 turnovers. And Diego Pavia just continues to surprise and excite the world of college football with, his reaction time when it comes to improvisation and quarterback scrambles, and his throw accuracy when he is a quarterback on the move. He's even able to do some really nice dump shovel passes up forward. He just is this great improvisational player that is honestly has one of the best awarenesses around the line of scrimmage that I have seen this season. If you haven't bought into his stock, and you should, well, it might be too late because it's starting to get pretty expensive. But outside of Vanderbilt, they played a great game. I feel like I got on a personal level too personal with Shane Beamer in this game, because I can confidently say that I think I saw every vein in Shane Beamer's face after the almost missed targeting call on Lenore Sellers, as he went off on the officials, and the hit on Sellers ultimately took him out of the game. So yeah, Shane Beamer was pretty irate, but Shane Beamer has not been fans of the officials for some time. We all remember his comments last year when he played LSU, and the refs really weren't helpful to him in that game either. But honestly, after this moment, the game was completely in Vanderbilt's control. Not because the team was severely limited in skill, but because the South Carolina backup quarterback played decent, but Vandy just had the momentum, it felt, the rest of the game, and never took their foot off the gas from this moment. Overall, with this Vanderbilt team, I think you 100% have to circle them as an opposing team. These are the scrappy junkyard dogs of the SEC that are going to possibly ruin your season hopes. South Carolina, we'll see how they're doing. Hopefully Lenore Sellers is okay. He is a great player, and they need him for this season. But I think it's safe to say that Lenore Sellers' kind of Heisman run, his hopes are dwindling a little bit, in my opinion. So outside of those games, we'll just go over some other notable games that happened around the country. And like we said, Georgia Tech won, beating Clemson 24-21. Number 19, Alabama, was able to stave off and shut down seemingly the Wisconsin offense, and their defense looked a lot better. Now, with this Wisconsin-Bama game, Jeremiah Bernard is honestly becoming a superstar in Tuscaloosa, as well with the combination of Ty Simpson limiting turnovers to absolutely zero and completing smart passes and looking better and better each week. Now, even though, yes, I even had a statement on my notes for my legal pad and before the game started, and I said, how is Alabama's defense going to get pressure on the quarterback? Because they only had one sack coming into this game. And yes, they went out and did a lot better sacking the quarterback and getting pressure, but I don't think we can accurately judge the Bama defense getting better on this defensive line and getting pressure because the Wisconsin Badger O-line was weak and injured. In every game this season, they have had a different starting offensive line squad every week. And all I could say is that the Alabama-Georgia game in 2 weeks, because Alabama and Georgia both have a bye this week, is really shaping up to be another great classic game that could be a big offensive shootout in this 2025 season. Now, next, number 3, LSU got the job done and beat Florida, winning 20-10 in Death Valley night game. Now, LSU's defense, they continue to play lights out, and this defensive squad is really what's going to carry them into close games and close wins the rest of their season, as their offense honestly has underperformed against lesser opponents. And we'll get into LSU's offense and that whole question later when we go through the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because I got a lot to say about this LSU team. A lot to say. A lot to say. Now, and then Vanderbilt 31, South Carolina 7. Another great game for a group of 5 school that is looking for a potential playoff spot. Tulane beats Duke at home in Yulman Stadium, 34-27. Tulane undefeated on the season, and Tulane continues to add Power 4 teams to their win column as they strive for the group of 5 playoff spot. And Duke, they just need a jolt of confidence if they want to have a chance for the ACC title game, because they were kind of looking like favorites, possibly being this dark horse team, but it's not looking like it anymore. And then some other games that happened around the country. Houston, now 3-0 on the year, beating Colorado 36-20. And this Colorado team really needs to figure out their identity if they want to get back to a winning program. And Willie Fritz, he's continuing to work his magic and is slowly building this Cougar program into a circle on opposing teams' schedules. Now, another overtime thriller. West Virginia beating Pittsburgh 31-24 in the backyard brawl. This was a fun game to watch. And that's really all I have to say. And outside of that, the next game, number 17, Ole Miss beating Arkansas 41-35. Both of these games, the backyard brawl and this rivalry game, both were a lot of fun to watch and just reminded us that we got college football back. We're going to have these fun offensive shootouts on one and then another defensive standoff with the backyard brawl. So much fun to watch. And these were both needed wins for Rich Rod and Lane Kiffin for their season ceilings. Because let's be honest, there's been some wild stuff that's happened in the Ole Miss Arkansas series in the lately in these last couple of years. And then USC continues to slowly gain confidence, slowly look like a better team than a lot of people thought as they beat Purdue 33-17 pretty soundly. And then the last notable game was California beating Minnesota 27-14. And Cal, their offense is looking dominant, looking explosive, and they go 3-0 on the season. And guess who their offensive coordinator is again? Oh yeah, Auburn fans. It's Brian Harsin. Just had to put that out there. Now, here are kind of some of our thoughts and reflections on this week that we have on the season going further, some narratives going further. And the first one is that Notre Dame needs really a lot of things to go their way that they have no control over in this season, and they are in worse shape than Clemson because Clemson still has the ability to win a conference title for a playoff spot as of now. That severely limits Notre Dame's control in their season and getting a playoff spot. Because right now, Notre Dame really is just playing each game week by week. They can't lose another one, and they are having to, be in the back seat waiting for one of these other Power 4 teams to really start choking, messing up, losing games that they shouldn't, and having a lot of Power 4 teams go 9-3 on the season. Because that, combined with the media, could propel Notre Dame into a spot. Because it's shown us time and time again that if you lose a tough game at the beginning of the season rather than at the end, it's going to be looked upon more favorably because people can say, oh, they've gotten better, they've learned since that loss. Well, Notre Dame's going to need to do a lot of learning, in my opinion. Now, Tennessee, yes, they lost this game. They lost a tough nail-biter of a game. But I still think that Tennessee is a legit playoff contender this season. And that one mistake without utilizing any of their timeouts to think the situation through does not ruin the season. The season's not over. You just have to go about another 364 days of Georgia fans saying, hey, you remember missing that field goal? You remember that? Oh, yeah, that was pretty embarrassing. Well, it's just like, Bama fans having to deal with losing to Vandy and hearing that for 364 days out of the year. So, Tennessee, don't be too upset. You still got a great team. You got a playoff contender, and you're still going to be a contender. So just keep your head high, I promise. Now, Miami and Carson Beck, on the other hand, continue to elevate their offense and their ceiling for the season. And I got to bring up this stat that Mario Cristobal is only now, after this win, 2-7 against ranked opponents. 2-7. 2-7. That's why we call him Mario Crystal dropped the ball. But I like the swagger that Carson Beck has, and his comeback is chugging along real nicely. Now we go to Texas A&M, and this Texas A&M team under Mike Elko has another shot to make the SEC title game if Marcel Reed can limit the turnovers he has and just continue to play dominant and smart football. Because Mike Elko, even though this defense may not seem like it's there, schematically, Mike Elko's got the mind. He can make sure that the defense is good. He just needs Marcel Reed to continue the offensive production and leading that side of the ball. Now, with this Georgia Tech team, it's time that we start respecting them with Brent Key. And I think the ripple effects from this win are not only going to be felt throughout this season and their confidence and kind of play for the rest of the season and the swagger that they have, but I think it will also have positive effects for this program in the recruiting, not only transfer, but high school recruiting. They are able to go out here and win with a lot of 3 stars, not blue chip talent. They've slowly been able to get some blue chip talent, but they still are, the bulk of their depth is really 3 stars. And he is developing these 3 stars greatly. And so now maybe he can get those 4 stars and develop them into higher caliber 5-star players. Because I think Brent Key can do it. I love him. He's got the keys to success right now. And I am loving it. Now, Diego Pavia, he just is that guy. He's that guy. And if he keeps playing with this level, they keep winning these tough games. I'm saying it right now. I'm saying it. I think I see a Heisman bid in the future for him this season. He's just got to keep playing like he's playing. keep playing with the confidence, swagger, and command. And if they win some more of these games that they shouldn't, there's going to be a lot of buzz with Pavia and the Heisman. Now, for the Crimson Tide, great win, but their defense needs to improve if they want to compete in the SEC. They showed a lot more tenacity. They showed a lot more drive, a lot more attacking the football, but they really need to just continue improving. They need to continue improving, in my opinion. Now, Kansas State. Kansas State. And Colorado are really about to struggle for a bowl game appearance this season. And Colorado, I mean, we knew it was kind of going to be a rebuild year after the awesome quarterback that they had going 13-12 and almost winning the Alamo Bowl left the program. But Kansas State is just on a whole nother level of disappointment this season. There was so much hype, so much love, and so much media bias that they were going to dominate the Big 12 and make the Big 12 title game. Well, I don't even know if they're going to make a bowl game. So, disappointing. Disappointing for Kansas State, especially Kansas State. Not so much Colorado, but I still had Colorado easily making a bowl game, but it looks like they're going to kind of struggle for a bowl game this season. And then two conferences right now, the SEC and the ACC. What do they both have in common? The title race is more wide open than I think we've seen in the last decade. The SEC, obviously, Nick Saban, he's not there anymore. So automatically, it was kind of open for the taking. Kirby, we'll see if he's able to close that door shut, but I think anyone can win it in this SEC right now. We saw it in the Georgia-Tennessee game. And there's about like 6 teams, I would say, that can go and win the SEC title. The ACC, on the other hand, everyone thought that Clemson was going to come in with their veteran roster and run the table and just not give anyone a chance. I ain't even going to give them a chance. But now it seems like they're just giving everyone a chance to win this ACC title. And the big ones out of that, I would say it's not as big as 6. I would say there's about 4 that can win it in the ACC. But that's a lot more than what we thought there was at the beginning of this season. Now, I really have to bring this up because it's almost criminal. It's probably worse than Notre Dame's schedule. But the absolute cupcake walk that Indiana and Penn State has had so far their first 3 weeks is honestly disgusting. And this is why I'm so happy that the SEC is requiring at least one Power 4 non-conference opponent being placed on their schedules, because Indiana and Penn State are just having cupcake games. And it's like, what's the point? Yeah, Penn State, you're ranked 2. Congratulations on beating Villanova. FIU. Come on, man. Yeah, congratulations, Indiana. You've been slipping in the top 25 rankings. Why? Because you're playing people like Old Dominion, Indiana State. Get some freaking competition there. It's honestly disgusting. And then our last kind of thought for the week is watch out for Willie Fritz and the Houston Cougars this season and beyond. I'm really interested to see what Willie Fritz can do with this team. He's shown us time and time again that he can generate a winning program. He did it at Tulane, and it seems like he can with Houston, because the same thing that Tulane has, that Houston has, is what? Great players within the state and money within the state. And who doesn't want to be a head coach in Texas right now for college football? The biggest demographic for not only viewers, not only money, but also recruiting. Willie Fritz has a lot of things going for him, so watch out. And watch out, Houston. Someone may come and snatch him up if you don't treat him right. Now we go into our closing categories for the week. The good week, and the good is there were so many things good that happened. It was so much fun to watch this week. It was electric that I just had to give week 3 as a whole the good. And the good is week 3 of the 2025 season produced multiple classic games, just classics. It's a classic. It's a classic. And that's what's going on here. Clemson versus Georgia Tech, classic. Georgia versus Tennessee, classic. Texas A&M versus Notre Dame, classic. These are all games that we might have to put in the Nick Watts archive. And you may say, what's the Nick Watts archive? It can't be something that he just made up. No. It's not, can't be. Well, I'll tell you what it is. You may think I'm crazy, but during the off season, it's when summer rolls around. I'm so starved for college football that I will go back and put on old college football games during the BCS era, because that's honestly some of the most nostalgic for me. I'll just watch old football games. No commercials. Sometimes I'll do the huddle if I'm feeling frisky. And I'm so starved I watch them. Well, I put this Georgia versus Tennessee game and this Texas A&M Notre Dame game, put them in the archive. It's just a long Google Doc that just has all the games that I like to watch and put on that are fun, either fun and high scoring or just like tough, great, iconic games. And at the end of the season, I think for our recap, we just might give you some of the games that we will have archived in the Nick Watts college football video game archives. Now, the bad. It's got to be Clemson and Notre Dame's playoff chances after both being favorites to win the national championship this year. Their fall from grace has just gone so bad. Now, this ugly. It's real ugly. I'm about to get real heated about this because it's about a coach that I like to call Cry Baby Kelly. And the ugly goes to Brian Kelly lashing out on a reporter for asking a simple question about the offense after the Florida win at home. So I will set the scene. Brian Kelly, in this Florida game, he got absolutely rocked. Can't believe that he doesn't need like a hip replaced or something. So good on him for taking the hit and just showing fortitude for that. But he comes into the press conference, and the first question that gets asked was, so can you talk about your offense and how it's just not performing like you want? And he immediately starts lashing out. He said it was a terrible question and that the reporter is spoiled, that LSU is winning. And he basically went off on him saying that, that's a terrible question. Who cares about what our offense is doing? We won the game. We won the football game. Our defense played great. It was a terrible question. And he just went off on him. And it was honestly like cringeworthy. And at the same time, like I just felt disgusted because somehow, even after a win, Brian Kelly has the ability to become unlikable the immediate moment he steps off the field. He's done it time and time again in these media press conferences. He just doesn't have a good media presence. And I'm going to say this. It was not a terrible question. It is a legitimate question because of this. Garrett Nussmeier hasn't performed to his preseason hype. The LSU offense is averaging 20 points a game, and they are 17 for 41 on third down conversions. Because they asked him another question. He said, okay, forget the offense. What about third downs? He said, what do you mean, what about third downs? We did great last week against third downs. You are not doing well against third downs, Brian Kelly. Your offense is not where it should be. So you shouldn't be mad about someone asking about your offense when you're a quarterback for this offense. It was a preseason favorite to win the Heisman. You can't be mad that this offense is producing 20 points a game, which is honestly a little subpar for what they have seen you create. Yes, you have a defense, but your defense may not win you games against some of these high-powered SEC offenses. I'm just saying, you better watch out. But Brian Kelly, You're the one getting paid millions of dollars to coach this team and answer questions. And the reporter is doing his job and asking you a question. So why don't you do your freaking job and answer the freaking question, Brian Kelly? It's honestly disgusting, and you need to calm down, because these LSU fans, these reporters on your next loss will calm you so fast. So you better watch out, and don't be sitting here talking about the same dang things, because I'm going to be sitting here talking about how sad and pathetic and unprofessional your media presence is becoming. I had to get that off my chest. That it just got me a little bit mad, because you have to respect a reporter asking a question. That is his job. And what's your job, Brian Kelly? Not to sit there and bicker and argue with him and have an ugly conversation, ugly face, an ugly attitude about it. But you're a coach that gets paid millions. He's a reporter that doesn't make millions. So don't go off on a reporter for asking that question. You could have said, I didn't like it, but don't go and berate him. He's doing his job. You do yours. Now, with that out of the way, we have to get to our player of the week. And who could the player of the week be? Well, I'll tell you who it is. It is Haynes King. This guy was electric this week. Haynes King was 20 for 28 completion yards. He was 211 passing yards, 110 rushing yards with only one rush touchdown. I was going to give it to Jeremy Bernard, but I think Haynes King willed his team to victory because he didn't have the gaudiest stats. But do you know what he did have? He had the command of his offense, and he had the will to fight every play for every yard in that game and fight for every reason that Georgia Tech should have won that game. So Haynes King, great job. Keep doing your thing, King. Great performance. I love to see it. Now, Thursday, we give you our Week 4 preview with our top 3 ranked matchups, including Auburn at Oklahoma, Illinois at Indiana, and Texas Tech at Utah. We aren't telling you these are all going to be ranked, but we don't know what their rankings are because the AP poll will change by the time this comes out. I want to thank all of you for tuning in to this episode of College Football Under Review. I'm Nick Watts, and we'll see you next time when we take more college football under review.